So this is the second film to illustrate the example of ideology and cinema. Now in the first film, Oriravu, which was screened last, you were expected to deal with the ideology of gender as an ideology, how it is problematized and how it is taking a role within the film narrative. Now film narratives in the view of the classical film theories have two purposes. So there are two schools of thoughts. One school of thought argues that film is making us possible representations of reality. There is no other medium in the present day world that can help us to deal with reality. So you have Bazin arguing the case of film's purpose as the purpose of realism, the purpose of representation. Unlike painting, where you have a painter as a mediator, unlike other arts, you have others as mediator. Photography and cinematography were seen by these early film scholars as having nobody mediating. Okay? Unlike a painter, the photographer was not seen as a mediator. So the camera's role was seen as very objective. Camera was seen as something that cannot be manipulated by the human beings. The process of chemistry that is involved in early photography was seen as almost like a godly thing with a certain objectivity. Of course, in recent times, we have digital photography, you have digital softwares which act as sites of manipulation. But those days, these theories believed and argued on the basis of their beliefs that these were higher arts when compared to painting and theatre. So one school of thought led by Bazin argues that film's purpose is to represent reality. Another school of thought led by Ornheim and others, they argued that film is a medium with so many limitations and it cannot deal with realities which are multiple. On the one hand, film is a medium with limitations. So any medium with limitations can only be used in an innovative way, clever way, and that can be resulting only in the purpose of artistic expression. So you can work with a medium like film to deal with reality, though, but not through representations. So according to the second school of thought, reality is segmented, fragmented, multiple. So there are so many realities. So they were arguing, how can you represent any one reality? It's not possible, isn't it? So you need multiple representations of reality. So this class is not one. This class is not one. You cannot have a still image of this class by positioning the camera from here. What happens? It provides only a particular perspective of the way you are seated. If I am going to move the camera to the center, what happens? It provides another perspective of this reality. If I am going to move the camera here, it provides yet another perspective. So there is no end to these multiple dimensions of a single reality. So the best way to illustrate the difference between these two schools of thought is those who argue the case of film as a medium of representation, they can only get near the window, look through the window, what is outside the window. Okay, they perceive that what is outside the window is single reality. But the other school believes that if the person is going to change his location in front of the window multiple times, the view of what is outside the window also changes, becomes multiple, isn't it? So these are the two schools of thought. And one school which believes in artistic expression went by the name formalist school, formalism. Another school which argued the case of representation went by the name realist school. So they believed in realism. Formalism believes in the form of the art, film as a form, because it has certain characteristics. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative. So formalist school of thought believes in the artistic purpose of cinema. Realist school, they believe in the representational purpose of cinema. So keep this in mind when you examine these two films and the coming films. So according to these first wave of film theories, film's purposes are two: artistic purpose, representational purpose. Now, representational purpose, let us take this as a point of discussion. Whatever you have seen in this film, how do you view the film's artistic purpose? Is this film an example of film as a medium of art, or is this film an example of film as a medium of representation? Tell me. Megha. Representation. Anju. No one?
Both, sir.
Both. Why?
Some frames are like showing அதாவது சில ஃப்ரேம் இன்னும் காமிக்கிறாங்க, அது அட் த சேம் டைம் காந்தியும் காமிக்கிறாங்க.
So if you pay closer attention, film is a medium of art also. Film is a medium of art because it cannot tell the stories as we tell stories in our real life. Okay. The reason being, any film is a compression medium or a decompression medium, depending on the duration of the film. So a riot happens in a particular city, a number of families go through sufferings, okay, and temporally speaking, in terms of time, okay, this would have taken several days, several months also. But you cannot have the same duration in a film, isn't it? So you need to compress the objects at two levels. One is the temporal level. Temporal refers to the time scale. Another level is the spatial level. Any kind of communication is made possible by how we locate objects temporally, that is time wise and space wise. Now this class can also be located temporally. This is a class of Monday, 8th October 2012, between 2:30 and 4:30. That is the temporal location of this class. And at this moment, you check your watch. It is 4 o'clock, 8th October 2012. This is the temporal location of this particular class. What is the spatial location of this particular class? These class members are located in a particular space. Should we say audio video production studio of Department of Journalism and Communication, or something more to it? And whatever it is, we need to remember these two contexts of any kind of communication. Communication has two important contexts. One is the spatial context and the time related context. Without this, nothing happens in this world. Forget communication. Without time and space, we cannot survive as rational beings. Even animals need this sense of time and sense of space. A tiger that wants to kill its prey needs to locate itself in a certain time context, space context. Otherwise, it won't have its food. The prey which wants to escape from the tiger has to put itself in a time context and a spatial context. If it is going to mix up, then it will die, isn't it? So, in the case of any film, you would find scope to discuss to some extent the artistic purpose, because film is a medium that has reached this stage thanks to the techniques developed during the early period to help this medium to tell stories. To begin with, film was not a medium, not used as a medium to tell stories. When it happens, I showed one film. What's the name of the film? Those who are in Facebook know. Who's the director who for the first time Great Train Robbery, very good. Who's the director? Edwin Porter. Edwin Porter was one of the first narrators who sought to develop sort of editing skills, sought to use cuts, sought to have a story happening in multiple places. So, if you look at Lumio films, you would not find this. Lumio films was representational films. Putting a camera, shooting something, that was it. No effort was made for the first 10 years to tell stories. So when filmmakers were trying to use this medium to tell stories, it was in a sense trying to justify the artistic purpose of cinema. You must look at Lumio films as good examples of representational cinema, and Edwin Porter's film as an example of a transition period when film was discovering the other purpose. So, in this particular film, you need to know the political context of your reality. You need to know the cultural, social context of your reality. Otherwise, you cannot deal with the topic film as a medium of representation. These contexts change in every country. You may love your Iranian film, but the very fact that you are not a born Iranian denies you something. Denies you what? Denies you a certain location in the culture, politics and society related things of Iran. You can enjoy the film, you can discuss the film, you can debate the merits of the film, that's it. But you are also denied something, that is the context that belongs to that particular country and culture. We cannot get into it. We as Indians can only appreciate Iranian films to a certain extent, that's it. That applies to films made within India also. I can discuss race films, but I cannot get into the psyche of race films. I can discuss outdoors films, but I cannot get into the psyche of the filmmaker because I don't belong to that culture, isn't it? And because of this very fact, these filmmakers never attempted to deal with filmmaking in other cultures. Ray was asked several times by Government of India, by many others, why he was not interested in making films in Hindi. He didn't make films in Hindi. One or two, that's it. Because he always believed and said that I do not know other cultures. I know only my culture. I cannot make films in other cultural contexts I do not know. Filmmaking is a cultural enterprise, and because it is a cultural enterprise, the representational politics of filmmaking, the images that get circulated by a certain politics, filmmaking is also to be seen as a site of politics. Why this film came about in the first place, why somebody should think about making a film titled Parsania in the first place. Is the filmmaker a Gujarati? So any film has its roots. I mean films which are non-commercial in nature have the roots in a certain politics at the individual level. So one day this person Dholakia was looking at television in a city in USA, and he was seeing some horrific images as part of a newscast. He gets up from his seat. Why this is happening, where it is happening? He finds that this was happening in Gujarat, started reading about the story, comes to Gujarat, looks for himself about what happened, and he was motivated to make the film. How this could happen? Also because he was affected personally, because one of the victims happened to be his friend's family. So there was a motivation to know about what happened. There was a motivation to make this film. So forget the representational qualities of this film. Before this film was made, there was a context at the individual level. There was a politics at the individual level. Politics not in the conventional sense of party politics. Okay, that is different from the kind of politics I am talking about. Politics is a coming together of certain forces which influence a particular plane or site. So you need to see a politics of gender in the other film. So there is obviously a politics of gender in our society. Ours is largely a patriarchal society. Probably there were packets of matriarchy in the past, in the Malabar coast of Kerala, and now in the tribal belts of northeastern India, there are traces of matriarchal order where everything passes down the female line. Okay, particularly property rights belong to women, and they are handed down through the successive generations of women, not to the men. So the basis of patriarchy and matriarchy has to do with not the politics of relations at the individual level in a domestic space. It has to do with the politics of material things. Those days which were the assets for any family. During the primitive phases of human development, the assets were the cattle. The number of cattle a group owned defined the power of that group. More cattle, more influence, more social prestige, more power. Then, when agriculture was introduced in a big way, more land, more power, more social prestige. So, this politics of gender in a matriarchal society or a patriarchal society has to do with primarily things material, things which are considered as properties, which are mostly material things. Then it was cattle, land, now gold and other assets. So there is a politics involved at the level of gender, at the level of religion, at the level of communalism, which is the ideology to be explored in a film like this. So in the other film, I wanted you to deal with the ideology of gender relations. Here, what happens to ordinary human beings because of the ideology of communalism? Okay, and this is peculiar to India. Religious politics is everywhere. Religion is a bone of contention in most of the conflicts since time immemorial. You have a conflict, you can trace a religious dimension to it. So all the past and present conflicts at the larger level, macro level, have something to do with religion as a dominating influence, with some exceptions. Lands were conquered in the past to spread religion. It had a dual purpose. Explorers were sent to Asia with a dual purpose. The intention was not to explore new sea route. The intention was not to expand trade, but it was also to spread religion. So, when the trade route was discovered, a new trade route was discovered to Asia, India, it also provided a route to expand the sphere of religion. So, since the arrival of ships on the western coast, a number of changes have taken place, particularly in South India. We can take it up in a different class. But coming to this particular film, so there are several sides of representations. When you deal with a macro topic like communalism, there is no one window to look at communalism. So this film itself provides many windows about communalism. Now you have a foreigner. Why you need to have a foreigner? Is he working as a conscience keeper? Think about his role in this film. Why you need to have a foreign character in an Indian film to deal with communal violence? Probably he is there in the narrative as a conscience keeper, trying to provide a balance, trying to provide a view of a hidden dimension of reality. And any one film does not provide us a view of the entire reality. This film provides a view of a particular kind of communalism. So somebody would mistake this film to be a BJP film. If you are going to show this film to a person who doesn't like BJP's politics, so they may very likely say that this film is pro BJP or anti BJP, depending on the person's position. If he is a anti BJP person, he may change his view of this film. If he is a pro BJP person, he may change his view of this film. So the BJP guy would think that this film is pro Muslims. A Muslim who is anti BJP may think that this film is otherwise, even though this film is not condoning what happened during these riots. But this film provides another window of opportunity to the viewer to think about the world beyond this film. That is the beautiful purpose of film as a medium of representation. If I am going to take a still image of this class, it does two things simultaneously. One is it provides a representation of this class. It also provides a view of what is outside this class. Any still image provides two kinds of representations. One is about who is inside, the elements inside the still image. Another is the elements outside. Understand? Because you are excluding so many things from a still image of this class, necessarily it provides an opportunity for the viewer to think about what has been excluded. Similarly, when you are watching a film, simultaneously as you watch a film as a medium of representation, you are also made to think about what is beyond this, what is outside this screen frame. So any film makes possible two kinds of representations. One, within the story world of the film, another outside the story world of the film. We are trying to connect to these two different worlds when we seek representations about gender as an ideology, communalism as an ideology, religion as an ideology. So there are two kinds of representations. One is the obvious representations, what is appearing on the screen. Now you need to remember two important terms here which are not connected but which are the basis of any understanding of film studies and films. One is story, another is plot. What is the difference between a story and a plot? Anyone? You would have heard about these two terms. Plot is what is appearing on the screen, what is made visible, that is a plot. Story is what is happening in our heads. So when you see a film like Pathaan, there is something appearing on the screen, that is the plot. There is also simultaneously a screen working in your mind. There are two screens. I talked about two representations. Screen which we are watching and the screen of the mind which is trying to narrate a different story about what you are watching. So you are the storyteller, not the guy who made the film, not the characters who are inside the film. We imagine a story on the basis of what is presented on the screen. What is presented on the screen is to be seen as a plot, and what we gather by way of information, what we do by way of putting together the informations, what we do by way of narrating to ourselves the story, that is the story. So don't trust anyone who says that they have done the story. No. The real authors belong to the other side of the screen.